Welcome to The Dream Show. I'm Jane Teresa Anderson, and this is episode 243. And my guest on the show today is Renee from Ohio. Now, Renee contacted me and said, I've got a really long dream, but I think it's really entertaining and it's got lots of interesting quandaries in it that I think your listeners will enjoy. And not only that, but actually starts with a vision that morphs into a dream. But that's what I'm volunteering. Would you like it? And as you know, if you've listened to The Dream Show for a long time, what we do is we line someone up for a dream, but I don't know anything about the dream until we start recording. So that was the preamble she gave. And I thought, well, she said it's interesting, it's entertaining, it's different. We'll put our hand up for this one. So as you listen, because we've actually just finished the recording and here I am putting the beginning of the show on first, you'll discover that she's right. It's long, it's entertaining, it's very entertaining. She tells in a very entertaining way. And it delivers what she was looking for, because as the two of us explore the dream afterwards, you'll find that everything, the answers that Renee was seeking about her life, she found through the process of us interpreting and analyzing and exploring her dream. So I know that many of you are going to resonate with many of the things going on in Renee's life, and that you'll not only pick up dream interpretation tips and dream exploration tips from listening to how we explore her dream, but that you'll also be picking up ideas and resonating with some of the concepts and things that are going on for Renee. And maybe some of you thinking, that's kind of going on in my life too. What can I learn from this? So just before we go over to Renee, first of all, a reminder of the websites. My main website, janeteresa.com. That's Teresa without an H. You can go there to listen to every episode of The Dream Show that's ever been, although, of course, you can also find those on all the usual podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. JaneTeresa.com is also where you go if you want to book a private appointment with me by Zoom or by phone or by email. It's also where you go if you want to buy my books. I am the author of 7 books on dreams and dreaming and lots of ebooks. It's also where you go if you want to read hundreds of blogs on dreams and dreaming that I've written. And the other website, the Dream Academy, is my learning platform at dream-academy-online.com. It's where you can go to do 4 of my online courses on dreams and dreaming, beginning with how to interpret your dreams step by step, and maybe going all the way through to doing a professional dream therapy course. That Dream Academy has been going for 4 years now. It's the beginning of its 5th year. It's very well established. We have students from all over the world. If you haven't been there before, go and have a look, dream-academy-online.com. And just before we go to Renee, I do have to say that I have recently launched a YouTube channel, which has got a few videos on it. Not many people have watched them because it's a brand new channel. And I did it because my arm was forced. Somebody said to me, "You have not got a YouTube channel, go and make one." So I am now, have dutifully done that. You can easily find it. It's under my own name, Jane Teresa Anderson, and I'm gradually putting videos up there. So you might like to explore that and give me a friendly help by subscribing to the channel. Let's get on with Renee's dream. Welcome to The Dream Show, Renee.
Hi, Jane Teresa.
How are you going in Ohio?
Going great.
What time of day is it there?
It is evening here.
And you've had a good day?
Yeah, had a nice day and did some work and trying to think about this dream that I got to get across to you in a clear way.
I'm laughing because you contacted us to be a guest on The Dream Show, and you said, I've got a really long, complicated dream that I think is going to be really, really interesting for everyone. So I'm totally intrigued. So off you go.
Okay. Yes. So I hope this is exciting for your listeners too. So the dream, well, it starts out actually as a vision. And so I have had many sleep visions throughout my life since I've been a child. So having a vision is a familiar thing for me. And if you're listeners, sometimes people are confused and say, well, how do I know if I have a vision? And brief is that you just know. It'd be like somebody handing you a cup of steaming mug of tea or a cup of steaming mug of coffee, and you taste each one, instantly what the difference is. It's the same with a vision. So I had the vision first, which pulled me into the dream. And all this time I knew it. I was actually cognizant of it and cognizant of everything going on in the dream. So it started with the vision, and my dad, who has passed, he's deceased, he comes and visits me every once in a while. So he appeared in my bathroom shower, and then he walked into my bedroom and plopped down on a chair on the side of my bed. And for him to walk in a vision, deceased people usually don't do that because it takes so much energy for them to even come and see you. And so he just had a hard time even getting from the bathroom into the shower. But I knew because we talk telepathically, it's usually how they will talk to you. And he said, I've got to get this message across to you. So I'm like, wow, I've got to keep my, abilities about me here. And I should preface this, that about 3 or so evenings before I would go to sleep at night, I would say to, my guides and my universe, and I'd say, hey guys, I'd really like a good teaching dream. I haven't had one in a while. Could you give me one? Well, they sure did. So, and my dad, he was so tired from his effort of what he was trying to gather for me that he had a hard time even telepathically speaking to me. And his clothing, it was so beautiful because it was all kinds of colors that I had never even seen before. And that's another thing I had said in my waking life. I had said to my guides, like, wow, I'd really like to see the colors that you guys talk about on the other side. And it's like, poof, here they were. My dad had them on, and there was sun shining into my bedroom onto my dad, and he just looked so effervescent and so nice. And the chair that he was sitting in is a wicker chair that he had when he was living, that he used to sit outside in, and he really liked it, and him and his wife would sit and talk with it. But it's not something that I have in my bedroom. And his eyes kept glancing toward the bathroom and like, go in the bathroom, go before I have to leave. And I was like, what? And I didn't want to leave him because I was just so excited that he was there. So he was just like, go, and his eye, go into the bathroom. So I was like, okay. So I ran into the bathroom and checked in the shower, and he had put his gold ring on the shower shelf, where you put your shampoo and such. And it grew larger as I picked it up to a bracelet size. And he actually had that gold ring in waking life, and I actually have that. So then there was also a silver bracelet there, and that's something that he did not have in his waking life, to my knowledge, nor did he wear silver in waking life that I know of. And on this silver bracelet was an angel. It was just so beautiful and intricately carved, and I couldn't see it really clearly as I was, rushing to grab it to get back to the bedroom before he disappeared. But my understanding was that it was Archangel Michael, and the bracelet seemed to change in my hand as I picked it up, like it got bigger in a sense to fit in my hand. But I don't think it really changed size as much as the energy changed. So, because Archangel Michael was just alive within that silver band of a bracelet. I wanted to look at it, but I knew there was no time. Spirit was just saying, you can look at this later. We gotta get going here. And it all felt so safe and so secure and so loving. And so I had rushed back in the bedroom, and I just implored Dad. I'm like, don't talk. Just let me look at you before you have to go. I'm so grateful that you took this time to come in. And he said, I'm about ready to go. You're going to be pulled into the dream state, and I want you to stay aware of what's going on, because this is more of a message for you and a lesson. I'm like, okay, I'm on it. I'm excited. So then he disappeared, and I felt so good about it. And then the vision turned into dream. I could feel myself being pulled in to the dream, and spirit was just saying, stay aware. I'm like, okay, I'm on it, I think. I've never done this before. I don't know. And so I knew I needed to try and remember to get the teaching from this. And so my feeling inside myself was that I wanted to look at and examine that silver angel bracelet that was still in my hand. And I told the universe, my desire, that I wanted to stop and look at it. And they were just like, there's no time right now. Just stay with us. There's more to come for you. So the rest of the story is not as clear, but I had written down what I remember. So hopefully this won't sound like one long run-on sentence. So I was then in a scene. I was outside my house, but it didn't look like my house or property, but I knew it was mine. And the ground had lots of small holes dug up in it, like a person, not an animal, but like a person took a shovel and, scrapped it in and plopped the soil aside. And a friend, and just to step aside for a second, a friend of mine in waking life had been in my yard a few weeks ago with a metal detector, looking for valuables. And he had dug up the ground like that. He would just pull the soil back, but he would put it back. In my dream, it was not put back. And then I noticed the ground was just all mushy and muddy, and it was sticking to my shoes, and I was trying to lift them up, and I was like, what is this? What is this all caked on my shoes? And I didn't like that feeling. And I wondered, how did this happen, and who did this? It was so heavy and mucky, and I just wanted it off. And I felt some slight irritation on who did this. And suddenly there was probably about a dozen construction workers in my yard. And I knew they did this, but I couldn't understand what they were working on. So I tried to ask one of them, and he just kind of ignored me and said something, and we had a little bit of conversation, but I don't remember that conversation. And as an aside, my feelings in waking life for construction workers is I have an utmost admiration and awe of their craft and being able to put things together and build things that we humans use on a daily basis, for universal convenience, like, plumbing, electricity, buildings, land, repairs on a global scale. But most people don't realize that magnitude or appreciate them. And my feelings also go to, why do construction workers seem so unaware of the sacredness of what they are building or repairing and working with the earth? And most seem to have a coarse attitude of life and low respect for women. So kind of back into the dream. So my attention was shifted from my heavy, muddy feet and talking to the worker near me to the back of the yard, where there was huge machinery digging up the muddy yard. And I'm like, what is going on here? I was wondering, what are they doing? So I turned to go into the house by the back door, which was a glass door, and a worker was about to go inside. And I wondered in my head, why are they in my house? And the guy was about to go in, one of them, and he seemed so sad and so negative in his countenance on his face. And I looked around at the other workers and I said, why is he so sad? And nobody answered me. So I thought, I'll just say something to him. I don't know if it'll do anything, but it couldn't hurt. So I started to walk up to him, and he was so tall, and I reached out to hug him. And I don't remember if I actually hugged him or not, but the feeling was there. So I said to him, we must change our thinking to positive. Thinking negatively never helped anyone. It hurts ourselves, and our lives won't change. We must think positive thoughts to change our lives. And that didn't seem to have any effect on him or the others around him. So that scene changed, and I was inside my house, which again is not like my waking house, but I knew it was mine. And I don't remember what it looked like, no details. I couldn't tell you what rooms. It didn't seem either day or night. It just seemed neutral all around. And all I seemed aware of was construction workers all around. And what are all these people doing in my house? And I was actually like laughing, like, what is happening? And my feeling at that point had changed from the slight irritation outside, from the mud and such, to a, loving caring for that depressed negative worker that was outside that I told to think positive, to this amusement and chuckling of all this work being done inside my house. And then I came upon a worker, and he seemed to be in an outside enclosure room, like a patio room. I don't know what that would be called around the world. I hope that's clear.
Yes.
And okay. And I thought that was really nice, as I don't have one of those in my waking house, and it would be nice to have one. And I'm even thinking that in my dream, And vaguely I wondered, what was he working on? He was of average height, had blonde hair. He was about 10 or 20 years younger than me, and just seemed to have the nicest personality. And I was really attracted to that about him. And we walked up to each other and just put our bodies close. And I was so aware of our bodies being close together, and just reveled in the fact that our genitals could touch if we wanted to, and if he took his jeans off. So we put our mouths together, and I thought, wow, this is a great merging of energies, a great opportunity for me to merge these energies, but I don't have time to explore this right now. I've got to look more closely at the bracelet before this dream ends. And which I still held, that angel bracelet, and I think it was in my left hand. Then the scene shifted to a busy marketplace. So in the United States, we'd call it a flea market. It would be a place where ordinary people like you and I could go set up tables and booths and sell our goods.
Yeah.
And okay, so I was walking down the middle aisle, and there were vendors and booths on both sides of me. So I was walking down the middle, and I was aware of both people running their booths and shoppers doing their shopping. And all this felt neutral, not too busy. I was leisurely walking down the aisle, and my only intent was to stop and look at that silver angel bracelet. A couple times I had briefly stopped and glanced at it, and it seemed to morph and change into more detail. I wanted to explore that detail and wondered for a second if it was changing from Archangel Michael to a different angel. But I told myself, stop being silly, trust your soul. It knows it's Archangel Michael, and that he's there to help me. And as an aside there, stepping out of the dream here, is I had another dream vision years ago where Archangel Michael came to me and told me how to use him and work with him in my waking life, work, my spiritual work. So back into the dream. And I don't know why I didn't just stop and look at the angel bracelet. My feeling was that I didn't want to be in anyone's way, as normally an aisle way for walking isn't somewhere you stop, even though at the time there wasn't many people walking down the aisle. And I didn't want to stop and examine it at one of the booths either, as that's someone's business, and I didn't want to be examining my own item when they're trying to sell theirs. It just didn't seem polite. But my urge to look at this alive, morphine, speaking to me angel bracelet was so strong, I finally stopped at a booth. It was to the right side of the aisle. I got as close to the side as I could so I wouldn't disturb or block any shoppers from looking at the seller's merchandise. And there wasn't any people around, so I don't know why I was worried. And where I stopped, there was a display of women's earrings. So I made the mental note to be aware if any women come by, to move out of the way. And no one was in the vicinity. So I started to look at this wondrous, beautiful, sacred gift of an angel bracelet and the look at the intricacy and feel the loving, protective energy. And then right then the booth owner came up behind me and just started yelling at me to move away. She's like, you have no right to be here, no right to stop at my shop and, look at my own things when she has her own things and you're blocking the other people to see. She was just so mad. And I just very calmly assured her that I was very aware of my surroundings and I would not ever try to block her opportunity to sell, that there's enough for all of us and all of our individual talents. And as I was walking away, watching her pretend to rearrange and restock her full display, which there was nothing that needed to be done for it, I just felt so sad for her that her energy was so angry and unyielding. And I was pleasantly surprised that I did not feel any anger back to her, but a loving energy for hopeful change of humanity, and wondered why we humans do these things to ourselves and other people and animals and things. And to jump aside here again, in waking life, the appearance of the woman reminded me of my mother. And the personality is how my mother reacted to things in general. She was yelling, always angry. So that was basically my example of upbringing in life. So back into the dream, then my attention was back to the bracelet in my hand. As I walked forward, I was getting towards the end of the corridor and I could see people walking out the exit doors, which were to the left. And some people were going beyond the exit doors, so to I don't know where, as it seemed to end shortly after the doors, yet not end. And all of this was a pleasant feeling, like a nice spring day, people done with their homey shopping. They're going home to have a nice day of being at home and being cozy. And then my feeling shifted back to me, and I was leaning up against the side of the exit doors. So my left side was touching them. The doors were to my left. They were glass. And I had a prayer book in my hands. The bracelet was gone. The prayer book had a light blue cover and some papers I had put with various notes inside the book. And I have a prayer book in Waking Life with a light blue cover. Also, it's Catholic in origin, and it has no like special meaning to me, but because I don't use it every day, but I do like having it. It sits on my home altar, so it feels sacred to me. And so the dream book, or the dream prayer book, was kind of sort of like the one I have in Waking Life, but different. The dream book wasn't Catholic, and it was also a bigger size. My waking one is more hand-sized, and the dream one was a little bit larger than an average-size book. So I was reading it as I leaned against the side of the exit doors, and I had an awareness of a Catholic priest being there, and I wanted him to see me reading it. And jumping aside again here, in Waking Life, my family was Catholic, but we never went to church, and I was never in a Catholic church until I was in my 20s and out of my birth home. So, but I do like the way, I love all spirituality, but I think as far as mainstream religions, Catholics sometimes have a little bit more spiritual awareness of some things that are kind of nebulous. And so back to the dream. So I wondered where my angel bracelet was, as I wanted to show it to him and tell him about, this Archangel Michael connection and what a great spiritual connection it is. I had no worries that the bracelet was gone, but a strong curiosity of knowing I wanted to get it back and that I would get it back. But how could it disappear all of a sudden? Yet I felt and knew its strong energy was there. My foremost feeling at that moment was having the priest notice I was reading a prayer book, and he was sitting in front of me, facing me, and he seemed slightly disapproving. And he said, "I see you're reading a prayer book." And I said, "Yes, but it isn't Catholic." And he said, "Well, I'm not Catholic either." And I was surprised, and I said, "Oh yeah, I can see that now." And when he said he wasn't Catholic, his whole countenance on his face changed, and he seemed happy and attentive and looking into my eyes. And I was really glad and felt really good. And that was at the point in the dream where my guide said, "Okay, we've told you everything. We're going to slowly take you out of this dream now and remember it." So I could feel them pulling me up. So I was gently, slowly waking up with this great feeling of like, wow, what a wonderful gift I've been given. Great visit with my dad. So I grabbed my journal to write it down, and I said, "I've got to email Jane Teresa."
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you did. That is enormous. I have to congratulate you on getting all that detail down. That was absolutely amazing. How long did it take you to write it down?
It took me about an hour. Yeah. And I thought, oh my gosh, does she want all this detail? I don't want to put the listeners asleep. Hopefully they thought this was entrancing, I hope.
You told the story very well, and I think you've got us all intrigued. We want to know what happened to the bracelet.
Right. Maybe I'll have another dream on that one.
It's lovely that you previewed the dream or the sense of the dream with the vision, and that really set the scene, particularly with the idea of the contrast between the gold wedding ring that became bracelet size and then the introduction of the silver bracelet, which was something that you weren't familiar with in waking life, whereas you did know the gold ring. So that whole beginning bit, apart from also introducing the dream and that sense of I've got to be aware and remember all this, because this is essentially the dream that I've been incubating for 3 nights, and there's obviously a message that I want to have in my life, and I've primed my unconscious mind to deliver it, and I've brought in everything that I believe around me, you know, my ability to have visions, or my angels or guides, or the usual things that you use in your particular life to get yourself into that state, were all on hand and ready for the big dream. And going into the dream, you were presented straight away with this notion of the silver bracelet, and then the whole of the dream, right until the end, even though the end of the dream, the silver bracelet had disappeared, there was still an illusion of it around the end of the dream. So you could say on one level, the whole of the dream was an exploration of what is this silver bracelet, as well as all the other things that happened. So it was interesting that you straight away felt in your dream that the silver bracelet was did you say a gift from Archangel Michael, or represented Archangel Michael?
Representation of
representation
him.
Yeah, because your feeling is the correct one because it's your dream. But when you said a silver bracelet and I was taking notes, I wrote down, this feels like the yin to the yang, you know, like the gold ring was your father's ring. So it was kind of a masculine thing about it. And of course, silver and gold aren't opposites, but there's a sense of, you know, the gold of the sun being perhaps in balance with the silver of the moon. And we have then the sun as the consciousness and the yang and the outer world, the waking life, and the moon as the feminine or the yin or the interior world. So, and particularly because the moon, sometimes at least, is a full circle like a bracelet. Had that feeling then. The bracelet did sort of change size slightly or fit into your hand. Any idea which hand you were carrying it in?
I think in the left hand.
Yeah, so that would make sense with the left part of the body being the connected to the right brain, which is our yin. So that was my thought. My feeling was, this is like going into this dream with a whole exploration of something about your yin or your female side. And the fact that, I'm going to be asking you questions in a minute, but the fact that the only kind of, one of about 4 or 5 more unsettling points in the dream was the woman yelling at you who reminded you of your mum. So, you know, and, the mother, of course, builds our early picture of what is our feminine side, or our yin, or our inner world. So, I had the sense that this could be something about your yin and what you need to know about that at the moment. But as I say, that was my view, not your view. So you mentioned while you were talking that you got a sense early on of what Archangel Michael meant to you specifically, what your kind of arrangement with him is. So how would you describe what you feel about Archangel Michael? And does that kind of relate to the yin in some way?
Yeah, I like the road that you're going down, because I didn't even think about that. That actually really resonates. So Archangel Michael to me is a spirit guide that I use a lot in my spiritual work. I would kind of say he's my go-to guy if I'm going to be doing any of my work. And like I say, he had come to me in a vision, years ago, and said, "Here's how to use me in your work." And actually giving me instructions. I was like, okay.
Right. So in many sense, he's you have a sense, I don't know whether you have a sense of him being external to you or internal to you, but he's who you turn to when you're ready to bring up all your magnificence and your ability to help people in your work.
So I guess it could be internal or external, because I think it's kind of all the same.
Yes, yeah. So we'll obviously we won't be able to look at everything in the dream, so I'm going to pick out the main bits so that we can get to the essence of what your dream actually means, which is the key to it all. So I do want to start with the beginning and this idea of the ground and the holes and the mud and the construction and everything. And as you say, at the beginning of the dream you were out, and also note that you started outside the house, and then you gradually got towards the back door, and then you were inside the house before you were then at the marketplace, which was outside, and you were gradually exiting that. So there's a sort of outside inside thing going on. But at the beginning of the dream, there were lots of small holes in the ground, and as you say, you did relate that to the fact that a friend had actually done that to your yard a few weeks ago in a metal detector thing, but he had covered it up. So would you say that at that sense that the small holes did remind you of the metal detector? Was there a sense of a metal detector is used to find treasure?
Right, to find silver and gold? Or
perhaps.
I didn't think of it in the dream, but I did think of it as I was writing it down. I was just like, oh, wow.
So it occurred to you there. So we could say that there may or may not at the time of the dream, remembering, Renee, that we'll be relating this primarily to the 1 to 2 days before your dream, because the dream is also processing your conscious and unconscious experiences of the last 1 to 2 days, including your intense focus on incubating this dream. I want a dream with tells me something, so that's part of your experiences that are going in here too. So in a sense, you're looking for treasure already. But there's a sense of, instead of one big hole digging for treasure, there's lots of small holes. It's almost as if you have been looking at your life, or looking at all sorts of different areas of your life. Is a treasure over here, or is it over here, or is it over here, or is it over here? Could be all these different places, but we'll just keep everything open and we'll see. But somewhere around here, could somebody tell me the right hole to make bigger to go down here? And
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and then it gets mushy and muddy and sticky and caked on your shoes. So there's almost, you said it's heavy. You're going, how did this happen? So it's almost like this effort that I'm making of trying to find treasure somewhere in my life, or find a bit more. It's all getting a bit heavy. It's all getting a bit sticky. It's all getting a bit weighing me down. And in your dream, you're saying, who did this? And I'm irritated, in a sense, you're irritated with yourself. Why did I start this process? I'm so irritated. And then there's about a dozen. So we haven't got a sort of specific number there to investigate. You didn't say there were 57 construction workers and we could have explored 57, but you did say about a dozen. So what does a dozen mean to you in life?
I don't know. When you said that, I just thought a dozen donuts.
Dozen donuts, fine. It's whatever you just thought is bang on what it is. What do donuts mean to you?
Donuts are a treat that's really luscious sometimes. I do not partake hardly ever, but I do like a good donut.
Okay, so it's a special treat that you don't go too much into, but it's something that you really like. Okay, well, we'll bear that on mind at this stage, because there were all these construction workers there. And I don't know, obviously this is a point in your dream where you are looking at what you are constructing in your life, and it's not what you have constructed. The construction workers are there ready to start work. So it's either what am I constructing, what am I thinking about constructing, how do I feel about constructing, but somewhere linked in there maybe this idea of this is a treat. this is like donuts. Like I don't actually want to do like 12 of these really, but I just want to zoom in on all these possible constructions that I've got and find something that's a real treat to me and to other people, and build that. Yeah, and the fact that the fact that you then say in waking life you've got amazing, admiration and awe for construction workers for building things off. You can see I took really good notes while you were talking.
You did.
Building things for convenience, that most people don't appreciate the magnitude of what they're doing, that they're really doing sacred work. So this then we can apply back to you and saying that you feel, or you're considering creating something or constructing something that a lot of people might take for granted, or a lot of people might take the way in which you work for granted, or your ideas for granted, or what you would like to build for granted, and they don't appreciate the magnitude and the sacredness of what it is that you have to offer. And on the one hand, while you're saying other people don't feel that, of course in a dream we're also looking at all the aspects of ourselves. So we're kind of at one level of the dream going, I, Renee, do not maybe really appreciate the magnitude of what I am producing here, or what I'm considering constructing, and I'm unaware of the sacredness of what I'm trying to do here. And interestingly, you also, in waking life as an aside, see construction workers as having a low respect for women, you said. So we come back to that question of the yin and the silver bracelet and the angry woman at the end of the dream.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
So there could be, in a sense, that no matter how much you work with your feminine energy and your yin energy, and I'm sure that you do, that there's there may or may not be an element there of not having enough respect yourself for what it is that you actually do.
Interesting.
Nevertheless, we bring in the huge machinery digging up the muddy yard. So beyond the small holes, we are now going for major construction. So we're going in. Renee is going in, and what you're asking why they're in your house, who brought them here, and this is really you realizing for the first time that there are all these aspects of yourself. You brought them there. What do you want to build? And the one that you zoom in on at this stage, isn't it funny how we use that word zoom and it has a different connotation these days? But anyway, you zoom in on him on the dream, and he's so sad. Why is he so sad?
Yes.
In retrospect, why do you think he was so sad?
I'm trying to think if something even bounces in my head. He was going in the door. He just seemed he seemed just sad in general. I think we find, for me, it seems like so many people are like that nowadays, and I don't know. So I guess I'm always jumping into spirituality. Like, yes, stuff happens, like crappy stuff happens, but we've got to try to stay positive.
Yeah. And that's what you essentially said to him at a later stage. Yeah, there. So
that's right.
It's also that sense that at some point in the dream, you're reflecting there not just on how, yes, a lot of other people are negative, and you're working in your work to help people see things differently, but it's also suggesting, because if we look at everyone in a dream as an aspect of ourselves in our own life, it's like identifying a sadness within yourself. And perhaps, Renee, the sadness that has taught you to find the value in positivity and in saying, as you just said there, well, things happen in life, but things work out better if we take a more positive approach. But for some reason in this dream, it was important for you to really notice and connect with that sadness.
Yes, makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because I've been on a positivity thing with trying to work with my sad thoughts. Yeah.
Okay,
Right on.
that's good. So that's there. So we may be looking at that, the finding in the balance between the yin and the yang, the gold and the silver, to do that, the inner reflections on that. And you walked up, and as you said, you don't know whether you hugged him, but you walked up with the intention to hug. So there was that feeling of, I do want to integrate this, because when you hug someone in a dream, it's often like, this is a part of myself I'm getting really close to, I'm really acknowledging, I'm bringing into myself. So there is that sense of not... And I guess for people listening in, some people listening in might be thinking, oh, there's some people that are always positive and they're not really looking at their what they might regard as negative, our sadness, our grief, whatever. Whereas, of course, you and I and lots of other listeners know that positivity is not dismissing what you might regard as negative or sad. It's totally facing that and then turning it around and saying, what is the most positive way forward from here? So you've got that kind of going on there. And so it's no surprise that next you're going inside the house, because we're now going inside Renee, moving from what you want to construct in the outer world and really bringing it right inside yourself into the yin. Feeling quite neutral. You said it's quite neutral. And at that stage, you said you'd moved from the irritation outside to the loving caring with the sad worker, to amusement and chuckling when you moved inside the house about what are they all doing in here, which is absolutely wonderful. It's moving from my Renee's irritation in the outside world to acknowledging a sadness, to coming within my inner world and seeing the funny side of it. And, often the funny side of life is when we have actually really deeply encountered the difficult side of life, and we can kind of take a step back and almost laugh at it as the drama of life. Isn't life funny sometimes the way it turns out? And there's also often in a dream that you can have laughter or chuckling when you suddenly realize that something that you used to think was really important and deadly serious, you've resolved it, and you look back and you go, how could I have thought like that? Or that is really funny. So there may here be a sense of all these holes I was digging, all these different things, all these ideas I've had about constructing, and maybe at the end, was it all because I was feeling sad? And now I know that. Oh, isn't life funny?
Perfect. Exactly.
So your sadness may have driven in effect, perhaps, an overproduction of possible constructive new ideas to go forward, to compensate for the sadness. Whereas once you face that sadness and come more to terms with it, maybe you don't have to overdo what you're putting out into the world. You can bring it down just to some key elements rather than go overboard, because there's that feeling, particularly with persuading negative people to be positive, or persuading, it was a bit earlier in the dream, I've lost it now, but or not just one or two small holes, but lots and lots of big construction machinery. There's that feeling of, with the construction people saying in your mind's eye, they don't respect women so much, and people don't understand and respect the pure sacredness of their work. So it may be that you have been going overboard to try to create all these things in your outer world because you don't fully respect them, or you think other people don't. You've got to make the extra effort that isn't actually required. Like that old saying, which I can't remember, but it used to be seen everywhere, about I'll get this wrong, but it's as a woman I have to do 10 times the amount of work as a man in the same career position.
Right.
It's that. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, let me just find the next bit. Which bit of paper came? Did you want to say something at this stage and give some?
I didn't
comment?
know if you wanted me to.
I'd love to. Yeah, I've got so much to go through, but I would love for you to.
Okay. So that makes perfect sense of what you're saying, because so here's my dad in the dream and my mother. Even though he's vision part, whatever, it's all the same. But so that so I have been going over that ancestral, the traits that I got from them. And it's like, wow, there was such negativity through both parental figures, the yin and the yang. And it's like, wow, I really need to change this to help my life and to help out into future. I'm sitting here waving my hands around. Nobody can see me. Because those vibrations, that energy goes out, and I'm the only one who can change that from the outside to the inside, what you just said. Am I making sense?
Absolutely, yes. Keep going.
and so, yeah, and the sacredness, like you're saying about my work, and it's like, I do put so much into my work. Like if I have a client the next day, I actually do so much work the evening before, to pray and meditate and connect and see what spirit has to say about them. And it's like, so I'm basically working all the time. So you're talking about putting all that work into it. It's like, do I really need to do that? Do I not need to do that? From what, if I'm hearing some of these dream things correctly?
Yes.
So that's a lot of growth going on there.
It is. It's amazing. And just think, how much time you can free up for yourself to either do other things or perhaps more importantly, eat some more of those donuts, have some time to yourself.
Yay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, that's really good. Thank you for that. Well, we'll pick out another couple of bits from your dream and see how they all tie in as well. One of the lovely things, it was a small thing, but you said there was a patio room and you thought, it'd be nice to have that. It was almost like a quiet, that would be nice, rather than all these huge construction projects going on. There seemed to be an attraction with the patio room. Is that right?
Yes. And the young gentleman that was in it, in our bodies merged. Yeah.
And you felt he was 10 to 20 years younger than you are now. So he may or may not represent what was some aspect of what was going on for you 10 or 20 years ago.
Gosh, I'm trying to think. 20 years ago, did I get divorced 20 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah, and
about 20 years.
And 10 years ago?
10 years ago would probably be it was a time when I was really thinking about my spiritual work and doing it. And I think I had even consulted you at that time because I was still working a day job. And I wanted to do the spiritual work. And again, from those parental things that you hear growing up, or even when I was adult, my dad saying, "You'll never be able to do that. Who does that kind of stuff?"
Yes. Yes.
And so there that is.
So that's beautiful. Yeah. So it's reconnecting with, the new life that began presumably upon your divorce and leading up to that new life when you were ready to start to work in a completely different way. And it's referring to that perhaps as part of the dream, and the fact that you wanted to get, as you said, so close that your genitals could touch if you wanted to, or if he had his jeans off. So there was that sense of that was how close you were to bringing that on board, to getting back in contact with that, to merging with that feeling. And there's a sense of the patio room is this extra room in my life that I could bring more in on that level. And I don't know, one possibility might be, Renee, that if you think back to what your vision was that long ago, maybe it wasn't on such a huge scale. Maybe it was pared back in a way that you weren't having to put in all the prep work the night before, for example. Maybe that's the patio.
Yeah, because I would consider a patio room to me just, so nice and lovely and leisurely and connecting with the outside and nature. Yeah.
So leisurely, you say, or leisurely as I would pronounce it being English.
Yeah.
But leisurely,
right.
Meaning less hard work put in prior to your client consultations.
Yeah.
You could almost, there are many possible dream alchemy things here, but that patio room might be a possibility for the dream alchemy, how to bring up that sense of what you've just said, which I didn't write down, but I gathered was, a place where you see the outside coming in. It's small, it's comfortable, it's got the outside and the inside. It's got a kind of wholeness about it.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, to bring up that kind of energy in your life. So I'm just having to be aware because of the podcast length here, the recording length.
Correct.
But I'm just having a quick look forward. That's when you entered the marketplace. So I love this. It's like, and particularly because you thankfully explained to all of us in all the countries in which we listen to this what a marketplace in the US means to all of us in different ways. And you described it as it's where ordinary people, you and I, would go to sell our stuff. So even the fact that your unconscious mind was telling us that it's the kind of place that you would go to sell your stuff, or this is about your marketplace, and it's how would I, Renee, sell myself or my product or my business in some way. You're going right down the middle, so it's almost like you're treading the middle path. On the left hand I could do this, on the right hand and I could do this. I'm trying not to do extremes. I'm trying to be sort of right straight down the middle here, but I really want to get the message from this bracelet that may be to do with my yin, and maybe also associated with my feelings about Archangel Michael and my trust in that aspect of my Archangel Michael guidance that I have in my life. And we all wanted you just to stop, to move between two of the booths, to go down the side and have a look at that bracelet. But you were too polite, and you felt you had to finish walking down this aisle, and you couldn't stop here and you couldn't stop there. So in general, those are the aspects of yourself that are blocking and limiting. I can't take this in. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to. There are all the shoulds in your case, perhaps.
Perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
And particularly that sense of not disturbing people, not getting in the way of people with the other stall holders. And, one take on that may be that you may be looking at what else to bring into your business, and maybe you want to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of pre-existing aspects of your business. Or it may be in the sense of, I don't want to be competing with other people, there's businesses around me, or something around that. That's something you might have to, because of our time limit here, you might have to just contemplate yourself. But the fact that you eventually get to meet, let's just downright call her your mum at the end, who was angry. I had a chuckle there because it was an earring display, and I was thinking, well, Renee, tell me, which part of the human body do earrings adorn?
The ears.
Yeah. What do we do with our ears?
We hear.
Yes, and hearing even sounds like earring, doesn't it too?
Yes.
And you had to hear and listen to her angry voice. So it was like looking at, no matter how close or not close you may be to that part of yourself, there's a sense, and I imagine that's a part of yourself that you've really perhaps either buried very deeply or worked with a lot, and there's still a little bit of it left deep down inside that came up for consideration of the dream, and you really had to hear this, and in order to let it go, in order to let her be gone.
That's part of that not bothering people part comes from her. If I'll throw this in real quick, because I know time, but it might help you. Because she would always yell and be angry all the time, my thing in my child's head was, I don't want to bother anybody. If I bother somebody, it will make them angry. That's the result.
Yes. And although you've probably worked on that for many years, how do you now see that as still having impacted you until this dream?
I tend to be very quiet and just kind of go straight down the aisle.
Yes. And maybe not market your wares in a slightly louder voice?
Correct.
Yes. So what was lovely there was that you did feel sadness and compassion for her, and which is feeling sadness and compassion for that aspect of yourself, which has held yourself back in the past. And so now it's like, how do I go out there and actually either directly market myself or speak out more clearly or whatever, without having to go the whole 24 construction workers and dig up the whole backyard and build a mega empire? How can you have a patio room and speak more loudly and get your work across, and also not have to work really hard at night beforehand, because being what you are is enough. You don't have to make up for what you have misconstrued as things that you have to make up for.
You got it right on.
Yeah, and right at the end, you've got the Catholic priest who didn't turn out to be Catholic after all, was just a generalized all-rounder, spiritual, nice guy that looked into your eyes and was happy. So you've got the eye to eye, maybe capital I to capital I, me to me, you meeting your spiritual self. And then maybe somewhere there for you to explore about, because you're reading the prayer book there, and you described that you tend to do a lot of prayers and reading and prep the night before seeing a client. And maybe his message to you there is something about, this isn't the book that you thought it was, it's different. He was disapproving of you reading the prayer book in a way. So he was sort of saying it's not that prayer is a bad thing, but that there's a part of yourself saying, too much reading, too much going on there. Just look into my eyes, just meet yourself eye to eye. I want to give you a dream alchemy, but would you like to do a sort of overall roundup comment based on what you did a dream incubation essentially, and even brought your dad in and everybody to really give you the dream, to give you the message that you wanted to have. And everybody's always used to me saying, dreams don't give messages. Dreams tell you how things are. You look into them, and then you get your message from your own head from looking into it. What have you got a message from this?
You put it all together. Actually, I think the whole thing is what you've kind of condensed it down to, is that, we all have our gifts, and I don't need to work so hard to put it out there.
Exactly.
So it's okay to be who I am.
Yes.
And put it out.
It absolutely is.
And not dig so many holes.
Not dig so many holes. And you have a lovely awareness of that, and you've lived it and you've felt it through discussing this, and we need to just really drive it in with a dream alchemy. And part of me wants to say to you, go out and spend some of your hard-earned money on a silver bracelet and wear it on your left wrist. Because that could be one way to go.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have a lot of hard-earned money, I could say go and find a bracelet that you've got and paint it silver. But I would be quite nice to actually buy the silver bracelet. And the other, and so the sense of that for everybody listening is to take a symbol from your dream, which is actually a good symbol, and recreate it in waking life and have it close to you. So wearing it on your left arm would be a constant reminder of this beautiful yin energy that you've got, and a reminder of what it all represents in the dream, and the fact that you can have it there with you all the time, and you build that message of the dream into it yourself as a touchstone.
Yes.
And if you also wanted to have another dream alchemy, my suggestion would be that you play with that patio room, so that you could actually say to yourself, if I were to either extend my business or keep it the same, or even reduce it and make it more focused on one area, and I called it the patio room, what would it be? And to play with that and actually design that patio room. And so that in doing that, you're playing with a dream symbol that really attracted you in the dream, and that was like small scale but intensely sensual in the dream, and seeing what that, playing with that dream symbol, which is a part of your unconscious mind, what that brings out for you. How does that sound?
All of them. I love all of them.
That's great. Oh, thank you so much, Renee. That was wonderful. And you told the stories really well. And people will have lapped up the preceding vision too, and the way that I particularly like the way that you described the fact that people say to you, well, what's the difference between a vision and a dream? And you say, I just know it's like the difference between a tea and a coffee. That was a really lovely way of opening that up, and I thank you for that.
Good.
Yeah, so thank
This
you.
has been great.
Thank you.
I knew you'd get on it. I'm like, I know she she can decipher all of this.
Well, I'm glad we've done that, and we couldn't do it without your dream and without you. And thank you also for volunteering it as a guest, because everybody listening will not only pick up tips about how to approach their own dreams, but also, of course, little bits of everybody's story resonate with everybody at some level. So you can probably hear the tinkle and tinkle when this goes out of all the silver and gold around. They go, oh, yes, I could. Oh, I want a patio room. I think I'll go and buy a silver bracelet.
Right. That's why I was hoping it would be educational and entertaining for all you listeners out there.
Thank you, Renee. It is.
Thank you, Jane Teresa.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as Renee and I did. It's a long podcast, so I'm going to sign off very shortly. A reminder of the website's janeteresa.com. That's Teresa without an H. Listen to the podcast wherever, subscribe to them on your usual platform. Do my courses at the Dream Academy at dream-academy-online.com. Share this podcast with people. Let everyone know about it. We're listened to in 26 countries, but I'm sure that there are still lots of people out there that would enjoy being introduced to the podcast show. If you search for it on any platform, don't search for The Dream Show. Search for The Dream Show with Jane Teresa Anderson, and it will come up straight away. And remember to my new YouTube channel. The next episode of The Dream Show, episode 244, is due out on the 17th of June 2021, if you're listening to this in real time. I know I'll be connecting with some of you between now and then, some of you who are clients long term and others. And otherwise, have a wonderful month, and thank you for listening to yet another episode of The Dream Show. I'm Jane Teresa Anderson.